Welcome to the First Responders Wealth Network. Our mission is to help all first responders change their mindset towards money and educate how to build long-term wealth through real estate investing. Are you ready?
All right, guys, welcome back to another podcast here, and I'm with Mark Smith, who's the 7-2 mindset investor, and we connected not too long ago, so I'm genuinely just looking forward to learning more about you, telling your story, and we can talk a little bit about real estate and what it takes and what really is that 7-2 mindset. So go ahead, man.
Absolutely. Hey, man, thanks a lot for having me on the show. I've watched your show a number of times, your podcast and so forth. And what really resonated with me is the guests that you have on. And I have a self-serving bias. I do have a healthcare background myself. So I'm always rooting for the underdogs, especially now more than ever in these uncertain times. So I just have the pleasure of being here. And I want to say thank you to you again. And really, who am I? I mean, that's a great question. Now, it's always the first question. Who am I? What am I doing? And what is the 7-2? So maybe we'll start with that, what the 7-2 mindset investor is. I'll get to the 7-2 in a second, but the mindset investor is, I made a proclamation about a year and a half ago that I would invest $1 million into my mindset. So most people are looking, hey, I want to invest money into a property. I want to invest money into stocks. I want to invest money into RSPs or whatever it is. The thing is, there's a high level of uncertainty there. We don't know what's going to happen. You can't control the ROI. I made a declaration I'd invest $1 million into my mindset because at the end of the day, that is the only ROI I have control over. Any of us, that's the only ROI we have control over. And so I've been blessed to be surrounded with some amazing human beings, amazing mentors, amazing coaches. And it really just changed the trajectory of my life. Now, I'm not telling everybody you have to go spend $1 million on yourself. You could just go pick up a book. You could just listen to Dave Knight's podcast, and that's going to change the trajectory of life if you put the action in place. But for me, I needed a lot of work, and I'll talk about that in a second. And that's where the mindset investor comes. So that's the first thing. Okay. Where does the 7-2 stand for? So the 7-2 is basically a number that is just myself signaling. The 7-2 is the worst possible hand in poker. You get a 7-2 in poker, you want to fold that hand, right? But in life, we can't control the hand that you're dealt, but you can control how you play that hand. See, I've been dealt many 7-2s in my life, and I took the easy path and just folded. I was a people pleaser, and I'll talk about that here shortly. But it wasn't until I hit rock bottom when I was hit that 7-2 and I was given a choice. It's either a bullet between my ears or I'm going to play that bad hand. And I played that bad hand, and playing that bad has changed the trajectory of my life and my future generations. And so that's where it really comes in. And as I go back and talking about why I needed this mindset shift and where the 7-2 really stemmed from, it really goes back to when I was younger, the scarcity mindset, probably the environments I was in. Actually, definitely, because as they say, as R.J. Ecker says, your programming affects your thoughts, which affects your feelings, which affects your actions, which then affects your results. And I actually got into the healthcare field. So I was actually a respiratory therapist. So my responsibility was working in the NICU, PEDS ICU, so neonatal intensive care, pediatric intensive care, and adult intensive care at a young age in my 20s. And the hospitals I worked at, we were dealing with some of the sickest patients. So as you know, if someone's in the ICU, they're already very sick. But now I was working in some educational institutes where they were the sickest of the sickest. You know, I worked in the field for a very short period of time. And during that time when I was 20 years old, I tell people I killed 7 people. And what I mean by that is at 20 years old, not only was I helping people on ICU ventilators, but I was also the Grim Reaper. I was the one that was actually turning off the ventilator when the order was made, although it was a family decision. So I was in the room with families making that, turning off that machine or turning off their last breath. You know, the youngest life I say I've taken was 14 days old. Then I had a 7-year-old child, and I've had mothers slap my chest. I've had fathers spit in my face and threaten they're going to kill me. I've had to be walked to my car. I don't fault them. Like, I can't imagine. I have 4 children myself, but I had no way of unpacking that. I have no way of unpacking at 20 years old. And we can talk about this further about some of the struggles I still see in the first respond, the frontline workers. You know, there's this machismo and this scarcity mindset that these individuals don't need help, but they're dealing with a lot of hell every day. I was 20 years old and my friends wanted to go to the bar, pick up the ladies and get drunk and all the fun stuff and good times. I just wanted to sit in the corner. I said, I told the server, just keep on bringing me drinks. And I wanted to be alone. And the reason I wanted to be alone is I felt it actually carried on the rest of my life. So I had a big chip on my shoulder all the time. It was just my way of protecting myself. I got into medical device sales and I sold ICU ventilators. And it was my way of just helping people to see the big picture and seeing, hey, there's other ways we can help people. But it was like standing in line to get my face slapped. because as you know, maybe talking to other first responders, healthcare is like the worst industry for that because they don't want change because it has to be, there needs to be research, there's all this other stuff. And we see it on the news today. And from that, it came on to my marriage and ended up having a breakdown in my marriage. And in that case, as I go deeper and deeper, that was a failed marriage. I basically lost everything I had, including my self-respect, my pride. I was given the ultimate atomic bomb of divorce cases, which is alleged domestic abuse, where I was traveling and the kids told me the cops have been called. Like, Dad, we're worried you weren't here. The police officers just told me we have zero discretion. We have to take you in. And to see the look on my children's face and losing faith in the system. But I walked them through it and saying, our first responders, the police, they're all great people. They're just doing their job. They're just being told what to do. It's not their. And I never faulted me being taken in. In fact, that was probably the first time I saw an angel, which was the police officer that took the long way. And he said, I can't tell you if I believe you or not, but if I was in your shoes, this is what I'd be doing. You know, and so I hit rock bottom. The loneliest place. I saw a lot of my relationships turn against me or just leave me, you know, with my employment, all that kind of stuff. And I hit rock bottom. And I just said, I need to get this back. And for me, I was still dealing with the broken mindset. So my broken mindset was my net worth's been disseminated. How do I get that back as fast as possible? And that's where real estate popped up. So I got into real estate, and again, I didn't fix my mindset. So again, I'd work all day, you know, doing my day job, come back at night at the properties, doing whatever renos I could possibly do, sleep on drywall, whatever it took, and then rinse and repeat the next day. But I was still shattered. My mindset, again, was still scarce until, you know, as I say, the teacher appears when the student's finally ready, right? I mean, I probably ruined that, probably paraphrased it, right? And that's when I realized that the issue was not the properties. The issue wasn't my ex-wife. The issue wasn't all this. The issue was my mindset. And I was letting a beautiful garden get impregnated with the nastiest of weeds. And that's where the paradigm shift happened and the trajectory of my life changed.
Wow. That's quite the transition. And there's so many things that you mentioned there. But so having gone through that whole journey and realizing that you have to focus on your mindset and the way you maybe address issues or life or yourself and reflect, etc., what areas do you focus on, or did you focus on from that point moving forward of really altering that?
Sure. That's a great question. So prior to that change or that decision, and you're going to hear, I use a lot of things that I hear from my mentors, which is, you know, the quality of our life is going to be based on the quality of decisions we make. But the quality of decisions we make is going to be based on the quality of choices we make. But the quality of choices we make is going to be based on the quality of questions we ask ourselves. So prior to this move, this shift happened, this pivot happened, I was a people pleaser. I was the biggest people pleaser there was. I had to be loved by everybody. I had to be the most popular kid in school. I had to be the big party guy. And all I was doing was filling a void of emptiness because I was so lonely inside, because I didn't fix that damage that was done early on. And so I was filling the void with just that, trying to please others. So in actual fact, I actually thought I was trying to be selfless to help other people or be liked. But in actual fact, I was being selfish. I was just fueling my ego. And it wasn't until I realized that I needed to make that pivot. And that pivot was, I need to become selfish. Selfish, not in a negative way, but a positive way. I got to focus on me. I got to focus on my health. I got to focus on my mindset. I got to focus on my morning, my daily routines. I got to focus. I need to purge people from my environment, protect it, like determining my why and fighting like hell to make sure nothing gets in the way of me achieving my why. And so I went from a point of being unselfish or to become selfish to a point where I decided to become selfish, which has allowed me to become selfless. That was the biggest thing with my mindset, is just understanding that it's okay to think about yourself first, but in a positive light. It's okay to say no. No is the most liberating word in our dictionary.
Yeah. A perfect example that it's always used, but you know, the plane's going down and those masks drop down. What are you instructed to do? You got to take care of yourself first. You put that mask on yourself before you can help others. Absolutely. And I find, you know, you mentioned about mindset, and sometimes you get so entrenched in your own environment, and we are a product of our own environment. Absolutely. So sometimes it takes rock bottom, for your example, or sometimes it just takes a conversation or a realization or epiphany or whatever the heck you want to call it to actually like make that pivot. And for me, it was surrounding myself with other people that were doing like such bigger and greater and just larger things in life than just what I was used to, which was, not that there's anything wrong with that, but just going to work, family, home. Paycheck, pension was the goal. And then you start looking around and you see people think differently and they approach things differently. And the biggest one you touched on earlier was that mindset approach from scarcity to abundance. And I didn't even know those words until I started diving into this real estate world. But it's so true, where that pivot of scarcity, and I was brought up in scarcity. Get a good job, get a good pension, save 10% of everything you make, follow the rules and you'll be good. And then you kind of flip it and you're like, and then you talk to these people where money is really not the object, where it's larger than that. There's abundance. There's enough out there for everybody, rather than kind of holding your chips and keeping them tight and not wanting to share anything. You want to share as much as possible. You want to, help as many other people. And the more you give, the more you get. And you're not worried about that abundance side of things. So I guess my question for you is, who helped you transition from that scarcity over to the abundance side of things? Because that was a big pivot for me.
Absolutely. You know what? It's been a series of events. It's been a series of different people I surrounded myself with, but it came from within. Because, and not to take away from any of my mentors, again, with abundance, I'll share all my mentors with anybody. I think it's phenomenal when people reach out, because nothing impresses me more when people drop their ego and they go seek help. But for me, it came down to becoming self-aware, so I can then have more self-acceptance. And with that self-acceptance, I can now have self-regulation. So it had to come in from within. It was a choice. I reference this book quite a bit on any podcast I'm on, which is Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search of Meaning. So here was a gentleman, he was a neuroscientist, and he was not only imprisoned in one concentration camp, but 4 concentration camps, and survived. He saw his family killed. He saw, can only imagine. But to paraphrase what his message was, is it's not the circumstance that defines one. It's how one chooses to respond to that circumstance that defines them. And that was a realization. I said, I'm not going to allow my circumstance to define me. I will define me. And that's when I went from a scarcity mindset to, you have to understand, coming from my background with my employer or just family saying, why would you pay for someone we could just figure out yourself? And for me, the first major expense is I hired a mentor, and it cost me, I think it was like $15,000 or whatever it was. I was at the most broken point of my life. My legal bills at that point in time were probably about $150,000. I think at this point, because it's still ongoing, about $200,000. But crazy. At that point in time, I actually had to take 3 credit cards. And I said, everything else hasn't worked. So what else do I have to lose here? I need to fight. And I did that. I remember doing this, and man, it was the best experience. And you've had him as a guest on your podcast, which is Corey McKinnon. And Corey is a great friend of mine now, a personal friend. And I love our conversations because there's alignment. There's alignment in our mindset. There's alignment in our conversations. We're always thinking about vision. We're thinking about big ideas, not about small ideas. We're talking about how we can take down big projects and not wasting, and because we're very intentional with each other's time. That was my first avenue. And I said, wow, it's like I had my first hit of dopamine. I'm like, wow, if now I can get an infusion of this nonstop, and I can get more mentors, because I'm a firm believer that one has to accept or be self-aware that we're all high performance individuals. So imagine like a high performance vehicle. Let's think about, like a Ferrari, for example, or let's just think an F1 Formula vehicle on a race. There's not one person that's fixing the tires or checking the tires, checking the brakes, making sure the driver's okay. There's a multitude of people making sure that vehicle and the driver perform. So I'm a firm believer to have multiple mentors. You need to have multiple mentors. You need to have and depend on what areas of your life. If I want, you look at Connor McDavid, for example, in the NHL, he just doesn't have his head coach. He has a nutrition coach. He has a psychologist. He has, a weightlifting coach. He has a strength coach. He has a skating coach. He has all the coaches around him. He could sit on his butt and say, hey, I'm the top player in NHL. I get paid this much. I don't need to hire anybody. But no, he's a high performance individual, and he does not accept mediocrity.
Yeah, it's people like that who keep you accountable every step of the way, right? I mean, certain people got to push you and keep you accountable to get to that next level. Otherwise, you really never do get to that next level. It's very few people can do that themselves. I don't think anyone can do that themselves. And it's just one of those things that you got to get the right people around you. It keeps coming back to who you're surrounding yourself with, what information you're putting in your brain. And, I always use the example, Mark, is, at work, not everyone's a negative person, but there's always those negative people in any workplace that just have that black cloud that hangs over them.
All the time.
And, for us, it's like, you're on the road and you door up, car window to window next to someone, and, you can only handle them for so long because everything that's coming out of their mouth is negative. It's exhausting. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And then when you surround yourself with people like you mentioned, your mentor there or whoever in the space that you like to be in, it's refreshing, it's motivating, it's inspiring, it's captivating. It's like, it gets you pumped. And eliminating that whole equation is difficult for some people. So the fact that you made that transition and put yourself into an area that kind of helped you propel is credible to you, and realizing that that's what you needed.
Well, absolutely. And I know you have a coach, I commend the students that hire you, because that's critical. Because why does one need a mentor? Why did I get a mentor? Is because I didn't have all the answers. But at the same time, I didn't even know what questions to ask. So what I realized when I hit my lowest point of my life, which was I don't have time. Time is the most precious resource. It's the most finite resource. But we're not going to get these seconds back. So what I need to do is I need to hire the best mentors to compress time, because I don't have time. And then I realized, okay, I have one mentor here, but I need help on this element. So I'm proud to say I got mentors all over the world where I pay big money on, but I wouldn't be here today speaking to you. My mindset, it wouldn't be where it is today if I didn't make those investments, because that's the ROI control. And the fact of the matter is I know I still have a long way to go. You ask Sir Richard Branson, you ask any of those upper echelon, they'll tell you the same thing. They're never satisfied. It's never good enough. Why does Elon Musk have to come up with SpaceX? He's done pretty good with PayPal. He's done pretty good with Tesla. Why does he have SpaceX? It's not good enough.
And I think some people misinterpret that word, not good enough, as far as people being not fulfilled or unsatisfied, to the other side of the fence or the equation of just wanting to get to the next level because they're competitive people and they want to succeed. And it's not about the dollar figure, it's about accomplishment, right? It's just getting to that next level. And some people can't comprehend that, and that's not in their DNA. And if it's not, that's perfectly fine. But obviously if you're listening to the show, it is, because otherwise you wouldn't be wanting to advance yourself. But that personal development is just the very bare minimum of the more you put into yourself, the more you'll get out and everywhere in most aspects of your life. So
we have control over, right? And that's what I said before. I can't control. You go buy a house tomorrow. Oh yeah, it's a great deal. The ARV is going to be this and this and this and this. You get the keys, and next thing you know, you find out that the main sewage is right underneath, and the city has to take it you got to take it completely down because the previous owner didn't do something. I'm just being very hypothetical here. You have no control over that. Whereas you have control over your self-development. Like, that's why I'm very methodical on my self-development. And when I go work out today, there's a reason why I'm working out. There's purpose in my life. And you were saying before, it's not good enough. And some people could look at it in a negative way. It's like, that when people say, oh, I have enough, I don't need more, right? That's their thing. But for us, we're the freaks, right, Dave? Because we want to push on our potential. There's so much untapped potential in us that we need someone to push those buttons, because we don't even know where those buttons are. And, when I tell people, when someone tells me, oh yeah, why you push so hard? Like, you should be happy with what you have. And I'll revert the question. So are you satisfied? Oh yeah, I love what I do. I'm happy where I'm at. I'm like, okay. So I said, okay, so if someone was to offer you a $3 million house on the beach with 2 briefcases full of money, would you take it? Well, hell yeah. But wait a second, you just told me you're happy.
Right. So why would you exit the situation that you're claiming to be perfectly satisfied in for something else? Because they're not willing to work for it at the end of the day.
Bingo. And for us, I call us freaks, and I hope you don't mind. This is how we operate. It's never good enough. We want to push on our growth. We want to push on other people's growth, and
enjoy the process.
Enjoy the process.
So the one thing that I found, maybe in all different areas of entrepreneurship and whatnot, but the real estate investor world is very much obviously intuitive and very aware of mindset and what it takes to get to the next level and that sort of thing. So through all your energy and development and kind of devoting that energy into real estate and growing your wealth and etc., take me through your real estate investing journey just real quick, because obviously the more personal development you have, you improve yourself. And if you're putting that energy into investing or any aspect of your life, you're going to have severe improvement. So walk me through like your process, because I know you're obviously very, very much entrenched in the real estate world.
Sure, absolutely. So I started out the wrong way with real estate investing because I didn't have a mentor. I wasn't in the right room. So I was basing everything off HGTV. You either do a flip or you do a buy and hold. And it always looked like heaven on, I was always waiting for that guy to move the truck and start cheering and showing me this transition. It was never like that. Right?
All in 30 minutes, right?
Exactly. So I took a path of doing buy and hold. So I got into some buy and hold early on. And what I was able to do, I was very fortunate that within 8 months, I was able to pick up 4 properties. So I got into it very quickly and very aggressively. I'm the type of person, I go for it. I see the juggler, I go for it. And so that was the start of it. And then what happened was I started looking at different things. And as you start getting going, the opportunity of JV started coming up. So I was able to JV with a number of people as well to grow my portfolio even more. But it was interesting because JVs are critical for scaling. Okay, it's like, the late Stefan Arnio, rest in peace, which is money, people, deal. Someone has to bring something to the table. And unfortunately, because I didn't have the mindset in check still, it was almost like, oh, someone wants to partner with me, I'll partner with them without trusting and verifying. So what I can tell you, I learned from that. And would I have necessarily done some JVs with some people? Probably not, because one of the things I have to ask, one of my questions when someone wants to ask me to be a partner with them is, what are they doing for their personal development? Because I have no time to deal with scarcity. I don't. I need someone pushing on themselves that's going to understand that there are going to be problems with properties. There's going to be some stuff. And I need to make sure that people's intentions are pure. Not that they're greedy just to buy someone else so then they can just move on. And it's happened. So that was a path I went on. And then I got into doing flips. So I had the buy and hold strategy. But then what happened was I was let go from my company. And during COVID, which is interesting because we're selling ICU ventilators, but it was a difference of opinion, we'll just put it that way, on profitability, we'll call it that. So I got into the flip world because I needed to create income, active income for myself. Okay. So I got into the active income space and I was doing some flips, and those early flips, man, they were horrible. Again, because I was still dealing with being a people pleaser. I was still dealing with some other stuff. I wasn't trusting and verifying and doing these things. Now, we didn't lose money on them, but we made mistakes. In retrospect, it was, again, we didn't do our due diligence. So we did a couple of flips to start with. And then when we started getting really dialed in, my business partner and then things just took off. And understanding, putting processes together, putting the right people in the right seat in the bus and so forth. And so since then, like, to give you a scope of our current projects that we have right now, we actually are doing 6 new builds currently right now. We're doing 6 new builds. One's in a subdivision. We're doing 2 other high-end new builds. We're actually going to be doing another new build that's coming up. That's closing here in a couple of weeks. And then we're doing 3 flips, luxury flips. We actually have picked up 63 acres where the plan is to do 28 new builds, or 28. There's going to be 28 lots. So we're exploring options there because people have already reached out to us on what we want to do with that. We've done that. I'm trying to think with real estate investing, what haven't I done? But I've done private lending. We're actually in the apartment acquisition space. So we're actually negotiations right now on picking up 41 units.
Wow. Whereabouts?
Those are in Alberta.
Okay.
And then I've done Airbnb arbitrage. I've done, trying to think of what else I've done. And we're working with agreement for sale. So there's different things that we've done. Oh, we've also done wholesaling. So we started off with our wholesaling business as we were doing flips because we needed that active income it was just that seed capital into our business.
Correct.
So we did some wholesaling with that. So if that provides any scope. So we've been busy.
Yeah, it's well-rounded, right? I mean, it's amazing kind of the different angles and routes that you've gone. A lot of people sometimes focus on one and just stay there, or maybe venture off into the larger scale stuff. But it's interesting when people partner with people and get someone who's kind of on their wavelength and they have the same vision and goals, and they just really catapult to the next level. And I find that's really interesting when people end up partnering with people who have kind of the same drive, and you've done quite a bit. Been at it for some time, so I know you've been doing some great stuff. So,
and I'll tell your audience too, is that it hasn't gone without its challenges. Like my partner, myself, Alex Soga, we joke about this, is like we're seeing bigger problems than we've ever seen in our life, but it's because we've taken the biggest action we've ever taken in our life. So hence why it's so important to have the mentors, because one of my big things with mentors is I ask mentors, who's mentoring you?
Yeah.
Because if someone's not getting mentorship themselves, that means they're capping themselves. It never ends, right? So for us, one of our mentors is actually Tim Story. And so Tim Story, he doesn't do anything with real estate. Tim Story is actually like good friends with Oprah Winfrey. He does coaching for like the upper, like he's Hollywood celebrity coach.
I've seen him speak a couple of times. He's great.
He's fantastic. And so for him, he's there to offload that risk for us because he's able to walk us through things and connect us with amazing human beings all over the world that have been dealt the same blows. And this is how you deal with it. So knowing that you're not alone, this is someone else has dealt with this before.
Cool, man. Well, obviously you got a podcast and all that. So can you let people know if they want to hear more or learn more from you or how they can find you?
Sure, absolutely. And you're going to be coming on the podcast too soon. So that's great.
Look forward to it.
So the podcast actually took on its own turn actually, because it came out as more. So we were doing a lot more, talking to a lot of real estate investors and so forth, which is great. But there's a lot of mechanics to that. I'm more of a mindset person of what the back end, the foundation work that's going to be required. And through my journey, I've been able to have so many phenomenal guests on. So really, I actually made a transition, Dave, where it was called the 7-2 Real Estate Investor. And it actually changed the mindset investor because that was, like I said, the one thing I knew I had control over. So the guests I've had, I mean, I actually have Brad Lee, for example, coming on next week, for example. What we talk about is the hero's journey. There's a hero's journey. All of us in the entrepreneurial world, or not for that matter, there's something, a struggle in our life that's shifted us somehow. So I've been blessed to have so many amazing guests. So we actually get raw and real. I've actually had, my guests tell me after that they've shared things on my podcast they haven't shared with anybody. We've broken bread together. We've shed some tears together on my podcast because it's about being real and letting the world know that we're all human beings. We're all relatable. Drop the ego. That's the first defense. Get rid of it. Play offense.
Yeah. Take off the mask and just be real, Goes a lot further than you think. So that is now 7-2 Mindset Investor.
Yeah. So,
cool.
so it's the number 7, number 2 Mindset Investor podcast.
Perfect. Right on, man. Well, I look forward to learning more and being on your show as well. And I know you got a lot of great guests, so definitely a great space to check some more content out as well. So thanks for coming on, and I look forward to doing yours.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, man. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate and review on iTunes. Also, check out our website at 911wealthnetwork.com or contact Dave directly at 911wealthnetwork.com. Stay safe out there.